Well, hello. It's great to see you this Christmas Eve. We know that all the schools are already on holidays, and lots of the grown-ups will be on holidays as well. And when I think of the word holiday, I'm reminded of a holiday once we had in America. And we were able to visit a real, live, working cowboy ranch. And the folks there got me up on top of a horse. I'd never, ever ridden a horse before. And when I got on board, they slapped it and off she went. And we managed to get the reins in the right place and steer it back and get back to where the folks were. They had great fun laughing at me. And then, whenever they stopped laughing, they gave me this as a present. And this is a real, genuine, authentic cowboy hat. And whenever I look at this cowboy hat, I'm always reminded of the Christmas story. The reason is that when we were almost finished our holidays, we decided to go and visit an uncle and an aunt. They lived a long way away, and we drove there, stayed a few days with them, and then headed back. And on the journey back to get the aeroplane to fly back to Northern Ireland, we had to stay in a motel overnight. And we parked the car and walked up towards the doors, and there was a big long line of people, all waiting to get in for the night. And as the people at the head of the line got their keys, they moved off and the queue moved forward. And when we got up to the desk and I said, "Could I have a room for the night, please?" the lady behind the desk said, "I'm sorry, there's no room left." Now that reminds me, you see, of the story of Jesus. Because when Mary and Joseph travelled to Bethlehem, Mary was going to have a baby. And when they arrived in the town called Bethlehem, and they tried this hotel and that boarding house, one after the other, and everywhere they tried, the answer was the same. "I'm sorry, we're full up. We don't have any room." In our case, the lady behind the desk said, "Let me go and check." And she came back a few minutes later. She said, "I don't have any rooms, but I've got a really large cupboard." And she said, "If we put a mattress on the floor for you, will that do?" So that night, my wife and our two boys and myself slept on the mattress on the floor in this large cupboard. And long ago, when Mary and Joseph arrived in Bethlehem and everywhere was booked up, no room for them anywhere, somebody took pity on them and said, "I tell you what, why don't you spend the night with the animals in the stable?" And that night, the baby Jesus was born. They knew he was going to be a boy because an angel had appeared to Joseph in a dream long before. And the angel said, "Joseph, the baby that Mary's going to have comes from God. And he's going to be a boy, and you'll call him Jesus because," it says here in the Bible, "he will save his people from their sins." You know what sins are, don't you? Sins are the bad things we all do. Sins are the things that make God sad. Sins are the things that spoil our friendship with God. And no matter how hard we try, or how often we try, none of us can ever get rid of those sins by ourselves. But that's why God sent Jesus. Came as a wee baby, became a toddler, a boy, a teenager, a man, became a carpenter, worked with Joseph in the carpenter shop, and then when he was 30 years of age, started to preach, to tell people of how they could be friends with God again. And Do you know what they did? This man who never did any wrong, this man who had never done any sins. And what happened? They nailed him to a cross. And the reason they did that, well, I learned a song long ago. It said, He took my sins and my sorrows. He made them His very own. So when Jesus was nailed to the cross, it was as if all my sins and all yours were put onto Him. And now they were taken from me and from you. That's why Jesus came. He came as a wee baby at Bethlehem to make us friends with God again. He came to build a bridge that brings us back to God. He came to give us peace in our hearts. He came to give us the promise that whatever happens to us, He'll always be with us. We can depend on Him. We can count on Him. He'll never, ever let us down. He came so that when the time comes, we can be sure of going to be with Him in heaven forever and forever. But you know, there's one thing, just one thing, that we need to do. And that is that if we would become friends with God, if we would know this peace that Jesus brings, we need to reach out to Him and accept from Him that wonderful free gift that He gives. Tomorrow on Christmas morning, when you come down and you open all the parcels that have your name on them, I'm sure you'll be delighted when you get them, and you'll take them and you'll be glad of them. That's what we need to do with Jesus. To say to Him, thank you. Thank you for coming as a baby. Thank you for living that wonderful life of helping people. Thank you for dying on the cross to take away my sins. And thank you for inviting me to become God's child today, so that I can know Him as my very special friend every day forevermore, and then to be with Him in heaven. I want to encourage you today, wherever you are, to say to Jesus, I'm sorry for all my bad things. I'm sorry for all my sins. Will you, Jesus, come into my heart now and take those sins away and make me that child of God that you want me to be and that I long to be as well. May God bless you, and may God answer your prayers.